I told everyone. I told everyone. And they did not want to believe me about Jao Pedro. And let me just tell you this right now. Jao Pedro is not like Jackson. Jao Pedro is going to be a problem for the Premier League. Before anyone says it's only Fluminense, they're a Brazilian team, they've got an old back line, it does not matter. To bag 2 goals like that in a Club World Cup semi-final, and I'm not going to lie, it really frustrates me that somehow, some way, Chelsea just keep doing this. They keep making these finals, they keep making semi-finals, they keep turning up in big games. You know, I'm happy to hold my hands up and say I was wrong regarding Fernandez. Armband on again today, goes out there, fantastic performance, assist, you know, and Chelsea are in the Club World Cup final again. And I believe it's going to be Chelsea versus PSG. And I'm not going to lie, it wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea actually go and do it. They've got heritage. I just don't understand it. Like, how do they get so much money for their players as well? I see earlier, 30 million for Petrovic. You know, another clean sheet for Chelsea in this competition, which is clean sheets against Spence, only conceded 1 against Benfica, 1 against Palmeiras, clean sheet against LAFC, and of course they lost to Flamengo, but now they've just made the final. Make sure you go down and drop a like on the video if you haven't already. Make sure you do hit that subscribe button. Yes, you watching right now, you there, right? Yeah, you. Go down and hit that subscribe button. We're absolutely steamrolling our way towards 70,000 subscribers, and we are under 500 away now from hitting 62,000, which is absolutely unreal. Some of the videos are hitting over 1,000 likes. So big up for your support. We tried to cover as many different clubs on here. But Chelsea have just made the Club World Cup final in a very, very deserved win. No Liam Delap tonight. We've got to talk about Jackson because if Pedro carries on like that tonight, Jao Pedro, I don't see him getting back in for a long time. Sánchez, Cucurella, Tosin Adarabioyo, Chalobah, Gusto, double pivot. And I'm going to say this right now, and I'm happy to say this. I personally believe, just my humble opinion, and I could be wrong about this, I could be right, who knows. But I'm happy to hold my hand up in the long run if I am wrong. Enzo Fernández and Caicedo, as it stands right now, is probably the best double pivot for me in the Premier League. I think Enzo Fernández and Caicedo match perfectly. Caicedo can play as a lone 6, can play as a right back, can invert into the midfield, decent passing range, can orchestrate things. Caicedo's passing into the final third, the way he can dictate play, the way he runs football matches now, they work perfectly. Palmer playing in the 10, I think it's probably up there. The three best midfields in the Premier League for me are Liverpool, Newcastle, and Chelsea. And it's hard now to look at this Chelsea team and say that probably, is it the best? Probably is one of the best midfields, if not the best midfield. And Nkunku starting on the right, Jao Pedro in the 9, Neto on the left. You know, fair play to Neto, still playing his heart out, managed 68 minutes tonight, lost one of his best friends recently, RRP Jota. On the bench, Jackson come on, Reece James come on, Noni Madueke, heavily linked with a move away to Arsenal, Andre Santos and Kieran Dewsbury Hall. No Tyreek George. I didn't really expect anyone else to really come on. Maybe George, that's it. A familiar face for all Chelsea fans in their back line tonight. Thiago Silva still performing at the top of his game at 40 years of age is just absolutely incredible. Absolutely ridiculous. But tonight, Jao Pedro, I said this the other day to Tom Little on the Football Terrace. He is going to be a problem. I think Roms on Twitter summed this up perfectly. Jao Pedro is the perfect example of a player playing around better players whose level will come up. And I believe that will probably happen to someone like Mohamed Kudus, Brian Mbeumo, Cunha. These type of players that have played at, no offense to any of the clubs they're playing at, smaller football clubs. When you put them around better players, Jao Pedro has made his First competitive start tonight. First competitive start. I don't believe he played against Palmeiras I don't think he started. Yeah, it was the lap that started. First competitive start. The first goal is an absolute joke. Is a really, 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 really strong finish. Whips it into the back of the net. And the Brazilian goalkeeper has got more chance getting a hand on the sun. And Chelsea have actually got a really competitive, two really competitive preseason games as well. They play Bayer Leverkusen and AC Milan, and then their first game is at home against Crystal Palace. And I'm looking at Chelsea's first 5 or 6 games, and trust me, if they can get a Joao Pedro these chances, I said when Newcastle were heavily linked, and they're saying, oh yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. He's an average player, only scored 5 non-penalty goals last season. There is a player in there, just about to be 24 in a couple of months. A player that got 16 GA in the Premier League last season, 10 goals and 6 assists in only 27 games. A player that can play on the left, can play on the right, can play false 9, can be a box player, holds up the ball really well, can put it out to the channels. And the amount of wingers Chelsea have got with players like Noni Madueke, players like Neto, Nkunku, Gittins. You know, you think Gittins hasn't even really played yet. All these players that are going to come in, I still believe Chelsea will go out there and make one or two more signings, but they are going to be a problem. Trust me on that. They are going to be a problem. 2 finals inside 15 months, 14 months, whatever it is for Enzo Maresca. Trust me on that. They are going to be a problem. You know, Jao Pedro stepped up in the semi-final. If it's not Jao Pedro, it's Cole Palmer in the quarterfinal. If it's not Cole Palmer, it's the lap scoring in the last 16. It's been a very, very successful tournament so far for Chelsea. They're scoring goals, 4 against Benfica, 2 against Palmeiras, 2 against Fluminense, 2 against LAFC, 3 against Esperance, and fair enough, they lost to Flamengo. Sometimes you have to take it on the chin. But I just think with a few more additions, they are going to be one hell of a team next season. Trust me on that. And of course, Jao Pedro gets another goal in the second half. Now, a player I want to talk about is Nicholas Jackson. I believe, this is just my opinion, and I could be wrong on this, could be right. Only time will tell. I think he's the 3rd best striker at Chelsea. I like the lap. I really agreed with the signing. £30 million, low fee, homegrown, makes a lot of sense. When I look at Chelsea and look at the clinical finishing ability of the lap, I look at what Jao Pedro can bring to the team, running off the ball, running the channels, playing it out wide. But has a lot more to his game for me personally than a Jackson. Jackson isn't a bad striker. He isn't a elite goal scorer, but he is not a bad striker by any stretch of the imagination. His stats along the 2 seasons he's been there have been very, very good. 19 GA in his first season, 15 GA in his second season. But for whatever reason it may be, he's only just turned 24. So he's the same age as Jao Pedro. He hasn't played a huge amount of football throughout his career. He only played 35 games at Villarreal, and then before that he was in the Segunda division. You know, he's only played 10 or so games for Senegal, and he's played 70, maybe 80 games for Chelsea. He's a very inexperienced player for his age. You'd think of players like Bukayo Saka, who are 24, that have played over 200 games for Arsenal, something crazy like that, or 200 career games. I personally think he is 3rd choice now. Now, that's down to him to prove to the manager that he's good enough to get back in the team and start regularly. But I think he may be on the chopping board and he may get sold this summer. If the right bid comes in for him, someone in Saudi or someone in Spain is prepared to pay 45, 50 million pounds. Now, he may not be worth that, but that's the current rate. You know, Newcastle just paid 55 million for Ilanga. Tottenham have got to pay 60 million for Kudus. In another setup, in another team, with maybe, I think he'd work in a really counter-attacking side. But Chelsea are going to be more of a progressive passing possession side for me next season. I think you're going to see them dominate a lot more games, especially with that double pivot the way it is. And for me, Jackson, I don't know, guys. I don't know. He may not be here next next summer. I mean, you see the goals that Jao Pedro scored tonight. Is Jackson doing that? I don't know. I'll see you soon.